Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning and a gorgeous morning here in the Enchanted Forest as autumn is trying to stave off winter. But it's beautiful nonetheless because the Enchanted Forest is carpeted in beautiful autumn leaves and the smell outside is absolutely wonderful. For myself, I love that smell of a wood fire, a fire that has been coming out of a chimney for some time. And it just makes for a really, for me anyway, a comfy and a cozy smell out in the forest to know that there have been people such as myself with their wood burning stoves running and keeping everything warm and cozy inside. So it's morning like that. Hey, Carla Jo Worth, it's great to have you in the chat room. And hey, Holly Hagan, great to have you here as well. Oh my goodness, there is so much going on at the school and at the temple within. Those of you that have ordered my book that is being released this month, a book of enchantments with the mystic angels of light. Some of you have asked the question, Holly asked yesterday, when will that book be delivered? Well, it will be very soon, and hopefully by the end of the month. David and I actually expanded the book to include some information that's pretty spectacular on angelic sigils. Some people say sigils, but it's all about angelic language and geometry, and so that's now part of the book. And I always like to give David, who is the artist behind the Mystic's Heart, an opportunity to always refine his artwork and to be really happy with what's going on the book and in the book. And so that's what's happened. And thank you for your patience as we continue to improve it for all of you, to make it something that will be really wonderfully usable and workable and meaningful for you. And lately I've been receiving the question, where do I order a copy of that book? Well, it's really easy. If you go to schoolofsacredstudies.com, there on the home page is the order form. And go ahead, it says pre-order, and it still is a pre-order because the publisher hasn't released them yet because we just tidied up yesterday with the final improvements and additions. So please go right ahead and order your copy. Thank you to those of you from all around Grandmother Earth who have ordered this book, and I do hope that you enjoy it. David and I are also now working on the cards that will go with this particular book, the Mystic Angels of Enchantment deck. So with that, good morning. Hey, Angie. Hi, Sonia. Katie Battle. Good morning to you too. This morning on Exploring Sacred, we're going to explore sacred visitations. Sacred visitations from those that we love who have crossed over. Sacred visitations sometimes from those that guide us in spirit, sometimes saints, sometimes angels, sometimes spirit allies, totem animals. The visitations, what they feel like, what they look like, how they happen. Let's talk about that today. Oh, thank you, Angie. She says she's looking forward to the book. It's been a book long in process. And as you know, David and I are very particular about what we put out. And so this has been years in the making, this particular book. Hey, Cousin Corey. It's great to have you in the chat room and on the airwaves as well. Divine visitations. Well, that's something that I've been experiencing the entirety of my life. I don't remember a time in my life where I was not, and when I was not, experiencing divine visitations, although at certain times they didn't feel very divine. And it comes with age, and it comes with study and understanding of spirit that we learn that divine visitations are very much like physical visitations here on the earth plane, in that we do have an opportunity and a say-so in who and what visits us, in having conversation with those who visit us, and having opportunities for learning and healing with those who visit us. This is the time of the year as we're going into the holy days And the holy days don't just exist at Macy's department store, right? With dressed windows for the holidays. It's much deeper than that. The holy days is a season in which people around the world celebrate that which is holy to them. Their prophets, the return of the light, the celebration of freedom, emancipation. There are many, many designations and many meanings to the word sacred or holy. But one thing seems to be a common thread during the holy days, and that is a longing for those things, those people that we love. Typically who can't be with us because maybe they're stationed somewhere around the world. Maybe you are in a military family or have military members in your family and they're stationed away from you. Or maybe we have children or loved ones who live far away and there's a longing to have them with us during the holy days. And then there are those longings for those that have crossed over, that have passed on, that have walked on to the realm of spirit. And this is the time of the year, I believe really here in America, it kind of begins around the time of Thanksgiving. And it proceeds through Hanukkah, Christmas, Diwali, all of those wonderful celebrations that we enjoy. The return of the sun at winter solstice. And we remember those that have gathered with us in sacred ceremony or for a sacred or a holy meal, a family meal. And in our longing and in our desire to reconnect, oftentimes what happens is that there is a reconnection. That there is a tug on the heartstrings, right, that goes from the physical world to the non-physical world, and from the non-physical world to the physical world that says, I remember you. I remember these times. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm thinking of you. I love you. I call them the love ties because for me, those love ties that we share with people and animals and groups that we have in our lives necessarily isn't a physical tie. It's usually an energetic tie, and whether that energy is through the blood and the bones within our body, our DNA, or memories and special times, or the love that we have. Plain and simple, there's an energy to love. And oftentimes that love signal is carried on what I call the love tie or the love line, from the physical to the non-physical world and the non-physical to the physical world. Every time that we think about somebody who has crossed over, that signal, well, and here's how I picture it. You know, Green Acres, the telephone pole line, right? And dialing up, Mr. Haney's store and dialing up through the operator. Every time that we think of somebody, in my mind, I automatically go to Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, and dialing up on the old phone and sending a signal across that telephone wire, and it is received on the other side. Sometimes the answer to our call or our longing happens in our dream time. We receive a visitation in our dream time. That happened last night for me while I was sleeping. Sometimes they're kind of random feeling, the people who crop in to our dream time space. And we can think, well, where did that come from? Often we forget that those that we love on the other side can also reach out to us. It doesn't always happen that we reach out to them, but we can also be touched by them, and perhaps they're thinking of us and wanting us to know that they are okay, sharing a memory with us. Visitations most often come in our dream time. They come in our daydream time. They happen at those times when the body is kind of sort of resting at night, or whenever it is that you have the opportunity to sleep when you're not at work, maybe during the day. When our body is somewhat at rest, our non-physical body sometimes really comes to life because it's not encumbered by the thoughts of the physical world, the day-to-day mundane things that we have to think about as we're living this human life. And so our non-physical body, our soul body, our psychic body, is open to receiving communications. Open to receiving a, hey, hello, I'm okay. I'm very much alive. I wish I was with you too. Or let's share a memory together. Let's stroll down memory lane together. Let's repair something maybe that wasn't repaired while we were both on the physical plane. Maybe it's time to heal something. Visitations aren't always just for, hey, how are you? I'm doing great. Sometimes visitations happen so that healing can happen. Healing on this side of the plains and on the other side of the plains. The physical and the non-physical planes. There are many layers to the physical plane. There are many layers to the non-physical plane. And oftentimes when people pass and there are unresolved issues, things that remain open, not tied up, not wrapped up, sometimes the easiest way is for a visitation in the daydream time or the non-daydream time, but the nighttime, sleep time, for that to occur. Katie Battle is saying, I love my dream time. Sonia is saying, Tsunami came to visit me in my dreams not too long ago. I so wanted her to stay longer, but of course it was only very brief. Yeah. The great thing about visitations from those that we love, it includes those that are non-human. From our little furry friends or feathered friends. I love it when Merlin comes to see me in my dream time or my daydream time. Sometimes Merlin will come to see me in his little spirit body, and I can feel him or I can catch glimpses of him in the house, visiting. I love that. Spirit is everywhere. Whether we believe it or not, spirit is everywhere. Sometimes visitations happen for the very first time for those who don't believe it, after someone that they love dearly has gone home, has left their physical vehicle, their physical body, and gone home. That's often when our first visitation happens. Someone we love has passed on, and the next thing you know, we can feel a tap on our shoulder. We can see them at the foot of our bed. We experience them in our dream time. And yes, Katie, you're right. It's never long enough, those visitations that are so sweet. It's never long enough. It feels like it's just out of our grasp to bring them back. The visitations that happen that are so beautiful and so exquisite are such a gift. Sometimes when the very first time we have a visitation from someone that we love who's crossed over, it can scare us. You ever have that happen? Where you're just caught off guard and there stands mom or dad or our beloved four-legged. There they are. And we wonder, well, how did that happen? It takes a lot of energy to make that happen from the other side of the veil. Everything in the universe is energy. Bring enough energy together and we can make most anything happen. I believe it's love energy that makes that happen. Right? This energy of love that says my loved one needs to know that I'm okay, or my loved one on the other side needs to know that I still love them. And so sometimes we light a candle in our home for those that we love who have gone on. Sometimes we celebrate by having altars set up at times during the year, like Samhain or Day of the Dead or All Souls, All Saints. We invite them in for a visit. to keep the bonds of love strong. Sometimes I think to myself with regard to visitations, and particularly with those that we love who are getting ready to cross over to leave their physical body, I love the stories that people share with me about how their loved one recognized that their loved ones who had already gone home were very much present with them in the hospital room or near their hospice bed or an accident site. Many ways in which we pass on in this lifetime. And people will relay amazing, extraordinary, exquisite experiences of being able to see not only grandma and grandpa or dear friends or war buddies, but they see their dogs and their cats and their birds and their horses waiting for them. I love hearing those stories. I love the privilege of being there with someone and for someone at the time of their passing when they relay those things to me. And you can feel it in the air. You can feel the love closing in, is how I experience it. And after someone does pass and they're taken in to make their way home to the realm or the land of their ancestors, in the heavenly realms we call it here, mostly in the West, we're left here on the earth plane to wonder, well, did they make it? Where are they now? Can they still talk to me? Can they reach out to me? Can they hear me? The answer to all of that is yes. Yes. Do they always choose to participate in that? No. Making our way back to the land or the realm of the ancestors, back to the good hunting grounds, is something I believe, anyway, that each and every one of us experiences after we pass on. And there's work to be done in making our way back to the realm of the ancestors, of the most illuminated and ancient ancestors. There are things that we learn, experiences that we have in the light of returning. And often people here on the earth plane will get frustrated. Well, why aren't they visiting with me right now? And I often offer, well, maybe their soul is experiencing something at this time that doesn't allow for them to have the quick visit at this time. They're also very much alive, and it doesn't include floating around on a cloud, waiting for the bell to toll so that they can come in and visit. Which is why sometimes I believe visitations happen spontaneously. Perhaps there's a break in the action on the other side, and they're able then to have a moment to get through to us, to say all is well. All is well, and all manner of things are well, says St. Teresa. Carla Jo is saying, my grandma would show up at the foot of Mom's bed when something was going on in the family. Oh yes, our loved ones will show up when something is going on. Maybe to offer a bit of wisdom, a bit of peacefulness, to let you know that the ancestors are there. This too shall pass. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that, Carla Jo. Sonia is saying, I have had more than one person tell me Phantom has come back in the body of Senya. I am thinking she's just visiting every once in a while. Oh, that's sweet. I do believe, too, that sometimes the animals that we have in our life when they pass, they will come back in the body of another. They will come back in the body of another, quickly reincarnate. Right? And we can recognize those souls as well. Yeah. Angie is saying, one of my friends, when her uncle was getting ready to move on, was having a verbal conversation with his brother on the other side, who was trying to help him cross over. Yeah, so the uncle was already having conversations with his brother, helping him to be unafraid, to let go, to leave behind. It's a beautiful thing. I was having a great conversation with Amantha Murphy in October And we were talking about the work that she does, which is very much related to earthly things, the earth goddesses and the spirits of the earth realms, the fairy spirits, the nature kingdom, all of those earth-related beings, the goddesses of the earth and the sea and the stones. And we had this great conversation that really the onus of my work is based on the realm of spirit. She doesn't really work much in the realm of spirits as I do with angels and guides and saints and allies and all of those sorts of things, people who have crossed over. That really isn't her ballywig, and it's mine. And we talked about, isn't it wonderful that she really, in her work, anchors the earth in her teachings, and my teachings are anchored in the sky, as we call her, to the ether, the worlds of spirit. And both are very important. Sometimes we can be visited by earth-based spirits, the fairy kingdom, the nature realm, all of those things. For those of you that have been in my sweat lodge, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes we are visited by spirits of nature that come right on in. Most often we're visited by spirits from the realms of spirit, the realms of the soul, of the ethers. But both Grandmother Earth and those that dwell within her and upon her and are her, the rock and the mineral spirits, the tree people, those that live under the trees and within the roots of the trees, all have a spirit and are all capable of visitations, of letting us all know that they're very real. Sometimes we can be visited by a spirit of nature, the spirit of the stone people, the crystal people, the rock people, the gemstone people. We can be visited by the spirits of the trees, of the flowers, of the land, those that dwell within the land and upon the land and overlight the land. It was a blessing to be raised in a home where I was taught that everything was created by the Creator. That everything is of the Creator. And not just people. Everything. Everything that we can see, everything that we can perceive is created by the Creator. I had a great conversation with my Aunt Dot while I was down in Georgia. And she wrote a letter to me about my life. And she didn't have it with her because she hadn't put the finishing touches on it. But she spoke it to me from her memory about how she perceived my life and my coming home. And when she was done, we talked about the Creator and that everything is alive with Creator. And whatever it is, whatever spark of Creator that is the breath of life within each and everything, I believe, she believes, has the ability to reach out to us, to touch us, to speak to us, to reassure us. Sometimes we can feel those visitations when we're in the forest. I've had many people who come to the forest just to be. A lot of my Native American friends will come and they'll just sit and they'll be in the forest. And when they come in for a cup of tea or a little bit of soup, they'll relay to me about the visitation that they had from perhaps one of the artists that are out there watching and protecting the land, watching and protecting the animals, particularly during hunting season. Sometimes when I'm out in the enchanted forest, I will see the spirit of the deer who were only partially shot, with bow and arrow or rifle who come back to this land. Every year we have them that come back to this land because it is a safe haven, right? Who were shot and not killed. They'll come back to this land and they will lay down and die. We had 2 of those last year. And we give them a proper ceremony and we honor them, and I know that their spirit stays upon the land. I can feel their spirit on the land. The visitations that we have, typically we know that we're being visited because we can feel it in our heart. We can feel it in our soul. That something is going on, something sacred is going on, something holy is going on. And sometimes it can be, holy crap, that's scary, right at first. Carla Jo is saying, Luna and Tigger have both jumped on the bed several times over the years. They've been gone. Yep. Holly is sharing, I've had a number of visits from my animals in spirit, as well as friends' animals, who want me to communicate to them that they are well and happy. That's beautiful. And Carla is sharing, a few of the Fae spend the winter in my home and have for many years. Katie is saying, yes, a peaceful place to rest. The other day I was having my hair done, and my hairdresser, her father came in. They're both hunters. She is a hunter and he's a hunter, and they were talking about the 3 bucks that they had recently harvested that they fill their freezer with. And that's how they feed their families. Same is true for my son-in-law and daughter. That's how they feed their family. None of it goes to waste. And he was talking to me, Doug was saying to me, well, those animals that come back to your place know that it's safe for them to be there. It's safe for them to pass. And I said, well, exactly. And I know then that their spirit is upon the land. And we had a great conversation about that. You know, I don't have a problem if that's the way that people feed their family. Just be good at it. Just try to be really good at it so that no suffering occurs, right? Yeah. Particularly at this time of the year, we say that the spirit of Christmas is in the air. The spirit of joy, or the spirit of Thanksgiving, or whatever that happens to be. Well, even Thanksgiving for some people is not a joyful occasion, right? Very few Native Americans enjoy Thanksgiving the way that the Pilgrims portray Thanksgiving to have been. And a lot of that is changing. Look at Columbus Day. Here in Michigan, it's coming up for a vote. Is that coming up shortly, Carla Jo? Holly, do you know, or Angie? Voting to permanently make Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day here in the state of Michigan. I'm really proud of that personally. I'm really happy for that. Sometimes we're visited by people that we don't understand who they are. People will come and stand at the foot of our bed, or they'll come to us in our dreams, and we'll think, who is that person? I don't know who that person was. They felt familiar, but I don't really know who that person is. I've had several conversations now with people who have done their DNA study, and they've looked up and they've discovered relatives, only to discover, so that's who that was that visited me. That was a great-great-grandmother who came to visit me. That was a 4th cousin who came to visit me. Which I think is just a marvelous proof in the pudding that love ties and those love lines are very strong. And sometimes they draw ancestors to us even when we don't realize in the moment that they are ancestors. That's another one of the fun things that's come from DNA testing, is sometimes finding out, so that's who it is that visits me when I'm meditating. And when I find out about this person, Denise, I then discovered that there were many similar interests between me and my great-great-grandmother. We were a lot alike, she and I, from what I've learned. Sometimes we have visitations from those that we love who have gone home because they're walking with us along our spiritual path. And that isn't to say that they're stuck somewhere on their path to the ancestral realm of the illuminated loved ones. But perhaps they've chosen to come back and forth to help guide us along our own spiritual journey and our own spiritual pathway. So they pop in to let us know. Last night I got this great little note from Ancestry.com saying that they have refined once again my bloodline, the regions of my bloodline. They've really, really, really refined it now. And so I popped in there last night at about 10:30 to take a look at how that's been refined and drilled down. Interesting. How sometimes we find that when we know our ancestry, I am first and foremost, more than anything, a Celt. There is no doubt about the fact that I am a Celtic woman. Pure and plain and simple. And everything else is an add-on to that. Native America, Africa, that's kind of a jewel in the crown there, so to speak. And it answers the question why sometimes we are visited by the spirit of, or the spirits of, the mythology of, the spirituality of a particular segment of the world. Sometimes the visitations come to us from spiritual pathways, all things Celtic, up there in Northern Europe, in the Netherlands and Northern France. I'm also Norwegian, Skål, and of course Scottish and all of that. But it's a very small segment of the world that my people come from, very small segment of the world. And their spirituality has been visited upon me since I was a little girl, both from Native America, Africa, Egypt, and the world of the Celts, of the Vikings. Sometimes the visitation comes to us in the form of our spirituality and the things that we're drawn to, and the spirit guides and mythology that appears to us to lead us deeper into the spirituality of our people, of our bloodline. It's magnificent. Fascinating. That 2% of me that's Germanic, right? The 80% of me or 70% of me that's just plain Celtic. The rest that's African. Explains a whole lot of things about the visitors I've had since I was a little girl. Visitations are a wonderful agreement with spirit, I believe, that says even though you are no longer at home in spirit, you will be visited by those in spirit that you are connected to. Many indigenous people believe that each and every one of us, at the root of who we are, the very root of who we are, the stardust of who we are, comes from a particular constellation, from a star, a cluster of stars, from the beginning of time. And that at the beginning of time, that cluster of stars brought beings to the earth plane. Some to Africa, some to Turtle Island in the Americas, some to what we now call the United Kingdom, Eastern Europe, Northern Europe, the Mediterranean, Africa, each bringing their stardust to that region. And with the migration of the stardust from the beginning of time, there's a lot of stardust, a lot of mythology, a lot of relatives, a lot of ancestors that we may or we may not recognize, but who clearly recognize us by our stardust signature. And that stardust signature that I believe lives in our soul body, or our auric, our light body, attracts to us visitations from our ancestors. Their ancestral songs, their ancestral beliefs, mythology, understandings, wisdoms. When I was in South Dakota, my sister Del Marie gave Easton, my grandson, his Indian name. It's a beautiful Indian name. Gli Wichapki Tokshila. He returns to us from the stars. He returns to us from the stars, which has many meanings. He returns to us from the stars. It means he's been here before. He's come back. That his home is in the stars, was in the stars, is in the stars, and shall return to the stars. Divine visitations sometimes come from a realm of divinity that may feel foreign to us because we've forgotten. I did this show today on visitations because I do believe, I feel that we are walking in a magnificent time right now of coming to remember our blood and our bones and the stories and the songs and the mythology of our blood and our bones and the history, good, bad, and indifferent, and honoring that which lies within us. Taking a look at the difficult pieces and parts, and then honoring the gifts and the talents and the beauty and the exquisiteness. And as we do that, our visitations then expand. Not only, I believe, to those that have passed in the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, but perhaps those that passed 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. At the School of Sacred Studies, that's really going to be the onus of a lot of teaching next year. The things that I teach, Carla Jo Worth, Amantha Murphy, Sandra Herrick, Laura, of course, will invite her back, and many others. I'm hoping we can get Tracy back and Mervyn Kelly, Nicole Fix, David Cad Sturkin, focusing on bringing home to the earth the lost stories, the lost songs of the original wisdoms, extrapolated into the present day. The eighth fire prophecy says that the original teachings that came from the stars would one day return after the return of the seventh generation. The seventh generation has returned and the eighth generation is now here. Exactly, Holly. What a beautiful name. He has returned to us from the stars. He returned to us from the stars. That is the name of someone who has come back and is present for the eighth generation. He returns to us from the stars with the stories and the wisdoms and the understandings from the very beginning. Those original stories of his people, of his star bloodlines, plural, that had to go underground. The teachings, hidden, erased, until the return and the safety that is needed for all of the stories, all of the wisdom, all of the art, the poetry, the songs, the teachings, the honoring of the gifts and the talents that come from all along the vast expanses, I believe, of the galaxies and the cosmos, from the heart and mind of God that has expanded throughout all time, in all time, bringing them back here to the earth at a time of ascension and enlightenment. Ignorance and the practice of ignorance is having a really hard time right now. Everything is being brought to the light. All of us are having a time of review, internal, external. We are the microcosm of a macrocosmic happening. Skeletons in the closet have nowhere to hide anymore. They are jingle-jangling around right now. Doors are being opened and a breath of fresh air, right, is rolling in. And in that, we're being visited by the ghost of Christmas's past, so to speak. The ghost of Christmas present. And the ghost of Christmases yet to come. The return of the light, the Christ Mass. Yet to come. The Michael Mass. Yet to come. The return of the light, preparing for the solstice. The return of the sun. I think something on a really large scale is going on right now. Very much related to bringing back the light, and not just the light of a certain few, but the light of all, and having an appreciation for that. And in that we are visited by sometimes our own soul self. You ever have a dream about yourself? Have you ever had a dream about yourself standing on a mountaintop or in a sacred place, and maybe you're looking like yourself, but perhaps a little more indigenous, more of a soul self, a star self? We can visit our own self. The self with a capital S can and does visit the self with a lower s to remind us of our higher self, of our higher calling, of who we are at the core of who we are, and perhaps of our purpose in any given time. I remember years ago having a dream of myself standing on a mountain with pines behind me. I love pine trees. They are my favorite. And I remember standing on a craggy space, craggy rocks with pines. And I drew this dream. I tend to do that. I draw in my journal what I see. And there I was standing with feathers in my hair. And the feathers were strung to a piece of wooden art. It was a wood carving. And the wood carving was in my hair, kind of like a bolo type of a thing. And from it was hanging an eagle feather. Well, recently I had more tattoo work done on my back. I'm having a back piece created on my back, and it has everything to do with my ancestors. And my tattoo artist, her name is Raven Wind, W-Y-N-D in Otsego, Michigan. Raven, Tattoos by Raven. We were working on a crescent moon that would hold sacred symbology, and she said, I found a really great African piece. And this particular African symbol means literally, God is the Almighty. God is present in all things. And she showed me the symbol. And I looked at the symbol and I said, yes, that needs to go in the back piece. What I didn't tell her is that is the symbol of the wood carving in my hair, holding the eagle feather. And I had that dream probably 15 years ago. And now it's on my back. And the first thing my granddaughter Davian said in South Dakota last week, Grandma, I heard you got a tattoo. Can I see it? And so I showed her the tattoo work as it currently is, which is the right half of my back. And her first question was, Grandma, what's that symbol? I said, it's an African symbol that means God is almighty. God is in everything. Creator is in every living thing. And she said, well, that's pretty Native American, Grandma. And I said, it's a universal teaching, sweetheart. It's a universal teaching. And those universal teachings are coming back. And we're being visited by those as well in our dreams, in our thoughts, in the poetry that we're writing, in the songs that we're writing, in the art that we are creating, in that which we are journaling from our higher self and our ancestors, to the songs that seem to be repeating in our mind that seemingly have no source, to the teachings that we are being led to the teachers we are being led to the healing that we are being led to. We're being visited by all of that. It's a magnificent time to be alive. Absolutely magnificent time to be alive. Carla Joworth is saying, priestess in the temple of Bast standing next to you, Dana. Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you. Those African roots and my love of Egypt, right? I've been detecting the scent of burning tobacco over the past few weeks, says Sonia, in places I would not expect it, thinking someone is visiting and trying to get my attention. Yes. Yeah. Holly Hagen is saying, yes, she's had dreams like that before. I popped back into a body I used to have in a past life for a few seconds. Yeah. Those are the old teachings, the ancient teachings. In some places around the world, they've not been forgotten. They've not been forgotten. Where religion is not prevalent, institutionalized religion is not prevalent in those countries, these teachings have not been forgotten. For those where religion was prevalent and is waning, the teachings are coming back. And in some places within countries where religion that was once prevalent, that is now receding or waning, the ancient teachings are coming back. I think that everywhere around the world, those teachings are coming back. It's causing some problems in some places, but for ourselves as individuals, it's a time of growth. It's a time of, I believe, expansion, universal expansion and healing. There's nothing like finding out who we are related to in order to have instantaneous compassion and understanding for those of like blood and like bones. There's nothing like exploring that. What is a Celt? Well, a Celt is someone who's made up of several bloodlines, right? Many believe that the Celts originated in Eastern Europe, sometimes in the Mediterranean, making their way up to Northern Europe and into Scandinavia, over into the United Kingdom and Ireland. Right? It's made up of many, ultimately landing in those places, having their way in those places. It's extraordinary. And now many Celts are here on Turtle Island, blending with indigenous people of Turtle Island. Life is always shifting. The sands of being human are always moving, recreating, becoming. It's exciting. Understanding what it is that's becoming. I believe we are becoming. I believe we're understanding more and more here in the West that it is possible to be visited by those that we love who have gone home to spirit. And we call them the old country, right? We say the relatives from the old country, as if Turtle Island isn't an old country. We're living in a country, on a country, upon the land of ancient people. This is the old country. when we talk about our ancestors and the country that they came from an old country and moved to an old country. And this old country, Turtle Island, is also shifting. The peoples are shifting. Del Marie, my sister, was speaking at Brother Guy's funeral. And in a conversation we were having just prior to that, she said, we've been so trained. We've been so trained by Hollywood to think that a Native American should look one way and only one way. The fact of the matter is Native Americans look many ways. And Guy's wife, Angie, who is Cherokee, said, well, Guy and I have had many discussions about the blue-eyed Indians that are Creek, that are Cherokee. And that just like all Europeans don't look the same, all Native Americans don't look the same. And finally, that begins to change the understanding of people. Sometimes we're visited by teachings, by new ways of thinking. One of the beautiful things, I believe, of the advent of the internet is that, not that Google is the end-all be-all or Wikipedia, I'm not saying that at all, but what I am saying is that it's leading people to understandings. Some people are hesitant to understand things because they've always believed one thing. But it is true, not all Europeans look the same. Not all Africans or Asian people look the same. Not all Native Americans look the same. Not all Irish people look the same. Heck, I was brought up to believe that it was the Irish people that had red hair. And that's simply not the case. It's Scandinavian people that have red hair. So when I gave birth to Elise and she came out with that rusty, beautiful red hair, I thought, well, there must be a bit of Irish in there, and there is, but I gave birth to a strong Viking woman, apparently. We're all being visited by so many things. First and foremost, learning to understand our own self and being visited by taking time to be with, to visit with our own higher self, to be with our ancestors, to allow those teachings and wisdoms and understandings to come through. The history, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, the joyful in that history, to allow it to come through. In doing so, we learn to understand ourselves. And in the course of that, in the journey of that, is when we are visited by those that we love, who bring us to the next healing, to the next teaching, to the next song, to the next wisdom. Ultimately, I believe, to the understanding that we are all related, that we are all stardust, and one day we return to that stardust, and maybe we come back here to pay a visit. And in the meantime, we work on our own healing, and in doing so, we heal Grandmother Earth and all that lives upon, within, and above Grandmother Earth. All of that happens. Visitations aren't willy-nilly. I believe that visitations happen to us for our own healing, for us to consider our own healing, because when we heal, when we understand, when we can then live in gratitude and joy, everything that we are related to, seen and unseen, is the beneficiary of the healing, of the wisdom, of our light. When you are visited by your higher self, your ancestors, the mythology of the songs, the traditions, your totem allies, your guardian angels, always remember to give thanks. If you don't know who they are, ask the question, who are you? I can feel you. I can sense you. Who are you? Why are you here? And allow your higher self, your intuition, to answer that question. Reach out. Be with it. Explore it. And in doing so, you come to understand more of your light, the stardust in your light, and you're able to shine it that much more brightly here on Grandmother Earth. With that, everyone, have a beautiful day. Get out there and shine as only you can shine. Celebrate the visitations. Allow yourself to go visiting. And keep the faith. Blessings be, everyone.
Wow.